right. I believe we are back and recording here. We talked about how to kind of explore a data set before, about just kind of looking at some of the things. Today I want to talk about referencing a data set. And in code, when we're doing programming, some of you may have seen this, but when we talk about reference, we mean when I have a data set, how do I get at the different parts of it, right? So we're in R here again, and we brought in our loan data set. It's up in the right here. I can click on here if I wanted to kind of see a preview of what it looked like. If I wanted to see a short preview in my actual code here, I'm going to make this minimize so I have more space. I might just say in here, if you remember the head function of loans, and then I can go ahead and run that, and that's going to give me, you know, those top 6 rows. There's more to the right here. We can see by going over, but that's my data, right? But I want to be able to use this data, right? So, for example, you know, if I look up there, let's say I wanted to know something about the I wanted to know a particular income or one person, all their information, right? And so what you need to understand is that everything in a data set is managed by rows and columns, right? And so that first set of numbers there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's not actually part of the data set. That's just telling you that's row 1, that's row 2, that's row 3. And then the other columns, although they have names, they can also be referenced by number as well, right? So if I go down here, and I say N row, and I say loans, and I run that, it's going to tell me I have 50 rows, right? So that is telling me that there are 50 observations. Similarly, I could go N column for number of columns, and I could run that. It's going to say 18. So that means I have 18 different columns. Each column is a variable. So I have 18 types of information for each of these 50 observations, each of these rows, which in this case is a loan, right? But this entire data set is just treated as a table, right? So I could, if I wanted to get to a specific thing, I could say loans and then bracket 2, 3, end bracket. And I can go ahead and run that. And that's 36, right? And that is this 36 right here, right? Because when I say loans and then I put in bracket, it's saying, look into the data set, go down to the second row, the third column, and give me what you find there. In this case, it's a 36. If instead of 2, 3, I said 2, 4 and ran that, it's going to be the word rent, because that's what is over there, right? And I can use this to, do functions, right? That is 2, 3 is 36. I could say, what is 4 plus that, and then run that. It's going to say 40, right? So loans bracket 2, 3 is saying, grab that number, and then maybe I want to do something with it. Now, if I say loans instead of loans 2, 3, if I leave out that 3, leaving out the column, what that's going to do is I can run that. It's going to give me the entire row, right? So line 2, nothing says, give me row 2, and then I didn't give a number, so it's going to give me the entire thing, right? And so it's showing it to me, remember, as a 2 is a observation, right? So that is all the information about one person's loan, right? And so this is basically just a very small subset of that data set. In fact, I could even go over here and say, let's call this person dot 1. Dot is a way of, you can put that in your variable names to kind of space it out. And I can go ahead and say, run that. And now what it's done is it still grabbed line number 2. I don't know why I called it person 1. I guess that's person 2. But you can see over on the right now, I have a new data set that is only 1 observation long. And I can click on that. And sure enough, there is all the information about person 1. Pulling out one person might not be that useful, but you can use a colon as well. So let's say I say person 1 to 10, right? Now I'm going to go over here and say I want the first row colon 10, nothing, so that I say I want the entire row, and run that. And so that colon means through, right? And so you can see over here now, I have, make this a little bigger so we can see it, person 1 through 10, is 10 observations, and I can click there, and sure enough, I now have a smaller data set of just the 10 observations. This is a great way to break up data sets if you just need a part of it or whatnot. Now, similarly, you might be asking, well, if I can do the leave out the column, can I leave out the row? And we definitely can. So let's go ahead and go back in here. And if I just say, let's say loans, but then I'm just going to say comma and then 3 here, and go ahead and run that. What did I do? I used parentheses instead of brackets. So we're going to put in, and R thinks that parentheses are functions, rightfully so. I disobeyed the rules. So let's go ahead and run that. And now you'll see, instead of a whole line, it's just giving me a bunch of numbers, right? Because I just said, ignore the rows. I want everything in column 3. But column 3 is a single variable, right? So rather than returning some kind of data frame of saying, here's a bunch of pieces of information about a single loan, it is now saying, here is that entire column. Here are all of the numbers about that, right, in a row. If I were to go over here, we can go back to loans and say, what is column 3, 1, 2, 3? That's the term of the loan, right? And so if I go back over here, if I name that like I did before and say, let's call that loan.term gets that, and I go ahead and run that, you can see loan.term gets loans.3. I'm going to go ahead and run that. And now over on the right, you can see I did not add another data set, but it did add a value down here, because rather than a data set of value, this is just a single column vector of all of the values of that term variable. Now we need that information so often that I don't have to actually reference it by term. I have names for all of that, right? That is the term of the loan. And so another way, and even in my opinion, sometimes a lot of an easier way to reference that, is I can say loans and then $. So $sign tells R that I want to access one of my variables, and it very kindly shows me all my options. I could click home ownership here and it will just auto complete that, right? And so that is loan, that is the same as that, because I can go ahead and run this, and we can see, I'm sorry, I did home ownership, which home ownership is 1, 2, that is the 4th row. We wanted terms, I am sorry. So let's go back to here and say, instead of home ownership, let's say terms. So we're gonna say $sign terms. And when I start typing it, it brings it up. Term is definitely what I want. There we go. And now I'm going to run that. And you can see those are the exact same numbers. And so loans $sign term is the same thing as saying loans bracket comma 3, because it is the 3rd column. And I could set it over there. But since loans term is just that column, I can now put a bracket after this and say, let's say 2, right? Because when I run that, now it is saying, I already know I am operating that column. Now I only need to give it one number, because it is the 2nd row in that column. So the 2nd row in that column, sure enough, is this 36. Loans is an entire table, so I had to give it a row and a column. As soon as I just start talking about the term, I only have to give it that row, right? And the nice thing about, once I talk about that row, I can do lots of things about that row. So term, loans $sign term, and then bracket 2 gives me that one value. But maybe I just want to deal with all of the terms, right? So now I can say in here, what is the mean, right? Or the average of loans.term. And so I can go ahead and run that. And sure enough, there it is. The average term is 42.72 months in this situation, right? And so it's doing all of that. It's doing that math on all the numbers in there. I could do, if we don't like the mean, maybe the median is something better. And I can go ahead and run that, right? That's the median. That's the middle number of all of that. And so this is just a real quick version of how we navigate that. So the important takeaway is that a data set is that table, usually, 2-dimensional. And if we want to call specific things, we have to go ahead and just tell it the row brackets to say we're referencing something, and then say row comma column. If we want the entire row or the entire column, we just leave out either the row or the column to get everything in there. And then if we want a range, we can use that colon to say I want everything from here to here. And if I'm just talking about a single variable, then a real easy way to do that is with that $ to access that column, and then you can do whatever you want, make copies of it, things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more in the next video about how to actually manipulate these variables, add columns, add rows, things like that. But I think we're good for now. We'll see you guys in the next video.